Is that you saying Happy Easter? You want this? Special Easter treat. Yeah, special Easter treat. Come on up. Come on up. Say, Happy Easter, humans! Daddy, this is the best looking treat ever. It's like a meat stick and a marrow bone mixed together. I'm not even sure what to do with it. I'm so excited. I love you, Kaiba. I love you, buddy. Happy Easter. Good morning, magic players and card collectors of all kinds. We are going to have to listen to Kaiba in the background while I do this video because she's going to be so freaking excited about that bone thing that I just got him. It is insane. Happy Easter to you all, or whatever you celebrate. I hope you're all well. We are here for Super Deck Sunday. And today, being the second episode of Super Deck Sunday, as well as a holiday, I wanted to do something special for you guys. So, if you tuned into yesterday's video, you know that I suggested I might be able to get the Squirrel Precon updated and tuned out yesterday. And positive news, I did just that. So we're going to do squirrels, and we're going to do bunny. Now, the bunny deck, I must admit, is not really bunnies, as I was hoping. As I mentioned in the video's description yesterday, it is definitely not necessarily a bunny deck. I think there's like 3, maybe 4 rabbits in this whole deck. Because this one was just too well designed for what it was going to do, and I've just basically upgraded this one to do what it wants to do even better. Whereas this one was definitely designed to have squirrels, and it just didn't have enough squirrels. So, I've added squirrels. Lots and lots of squirrels. We're going to do squirrels first, and then we'll do the bunny second. I love the Precon boxes. I know that a lot of people slam on them because they're not like well designed or anything, and I'm not saying they are, but the artwork just really makes it fun to have those commander decks in those boxes. I've only thrown out the ones that absolutely I had to because they were destroyed, or in one instance I threw out a couple that I actually regret throwing out now because I originally got the academic and thought I would just keep some cards always. But then I changed my mind. So, first off, I don't want to reveal too much too early, so we got to make sure that I do these things face down. We're not going to do Secret Commander on this one because you guys saw the commanders in the previous video, but in a shocking twist, which will surprise nobody, probably, I'm not doing either of the face commanders that came with the deck. With that said, though, which one is lands? Now I'm confused. Okay, I think this one's lands. Anyways, my commander choice, I'm split, to be honest, and I'd love to hear your comments in the video down below which one you would run. I know Chatterfang is going to give me way more squirrels. Don't get me wrong, I understand that Chatterfang is just going to give me squirrels upon squirrels upon squirrels. But I like the idea of all my squirrels having menace. And I have a couple cards in here that let me make all my squirrels have Death Touch, too. And Menace and Death Touch is a sick combination. And the idea that I could regenerate this one constantly over this one, like, I have a few ways to get cards back from the graveyard, get a few of them onto the battlefield. So, I mean, like, I'm not overly worried that I won't be able to get Chatterfang back if it goes to the graveyard. Camilla, on the other hand, I feel like will always be targeted. Chatterfang might not, depending on other stuff that's in the deck and whether people have forests. So I'm leaning towards Camilla. Or Camellia, sorry. I keep pronouncing her name wrong. Camellia. I'm leaning towards her, but you let me know and because I liked being original. And I mean, I know almost everyone picks Chatterfang, so I'm thinking this might be a little bit out there and different, which is kind of me. But anyways, for now, I leave them both out because I figure I'm going to do some test games with each of them being commander and see which one I like better. Lands? Lands. Alright, we're going to do lands next. We're going to move these piles up to make sure that they are all visible on the film now. And we're going to do lands. So, most of these lands you saw yesterday, I don't think I added any lands. I took out about 5. So I'm down to 34, 35 lands, something like that. Instead of the original 38 or 39 that came in the deck. I did that simply because I wanted to make room for more squirrels, to be honest. I know it's going to make it a little less efficient, but I find that in 2-color decks, it's okay to run a few less lands. When you start getting to the 3 colors, that's when you're running a real risk if you don't do it right. It's okay. Eat your treat, baby. It's a good treat. You'll like it. That's what the person at the store said. Anyways, so those are the lands for the deck. We just went through those super quick. The video is a little off center of my board compared to normal, so I'm just going to change that. Apologies. Alright, now, which one's artifacts? Artifacts is what I want to do next. Nope, that's enchantments. I will do artifacts next. Alright, so we got our Arcane Signet, we got our Maskwood Nexus, Chitter Spitter, Soul Ring. I don't believe I added anything other than the Swiftfoot Boots. I think that protecting the commander is super important in this one, regardless of which one I run. And having Swiftfoot Boots in here is just ideal for that. There is one other card in here that I definitely want to put Swiftfoot Boots on if it's on the battlefield. But it's not legendary, so I couldn't run it as a commander, and even if it was legendary, it's only black. You'll see it later, though, when we get to that. Enchantments next. Moldavine Reclamation. Midnight Snack is one I added in. I think this is a great enchantment from the Foundation set. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, you get to create a food, which is great in this deck, because whenever I create a food, if I have Chatterfang out, I'm creating a squirrel. And if I'm not, when I sacrifice that food, I'm getting a squirrel. So, either way, solid. And then I can pay 2 and a black to sacrifice this enchantment, and target opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of life I gain this turn. So, in theory, if I get down to 1-on-1, and I have a ton of food, I can sacrifice all the food, except for 3 mana worth, so that I can sacrifice this, and then that person's going to lose all the life I just gained in that turn. Which might be enough to tilt them over the edge. I think this is an amazing add-in to this deck, and I'm really surprised it wasn't a Bloomburrow inclusion. But it might have been, maybe I just missed it in that set. The Bastion of Remembrance we already saw yesterday. Binding of the Old Gods was in here. Beastmaster Ascension, I think that's the only one I added, was the Midnight Snack. Yeah. These are all great enchantments. Basically, this deck was really solidly built in terms of the enchantment set. I just wanted to add this one in for the extra foods per turn, because, again, I'm going to be attacking a lot with this deck. That's basically the premise of this deck. The original premise of this deck was sacrificing your squirrels a lot. I'm not really focused as much on that. I actually took the Skull Clamp out of this deck, I believe. Yeah, I did. I already went through the artifacts, didn't I? Yeah. I switched out the Skull Clamp for the Swiftfoot Boots. That was what I did. I honestly just don't see the need to sacrifice my little token squirrels as much as for the draw power. Like, there's plenty of draw power in this deck already, and even still, I'm pretty happy with things the way they are. For example, the Moldavine Reclamation. So yeah, we'll move on to the sorceries. This is one I added in, Urborg Repossession. I really like this card. It only costs 1 to play it, but if you pay the extra 1 in green, you get an extra bonus, which is you get to return a card creature from your graveyard to your hand, you gain 2 life, and then if you kicked it, you get another permanent. So I could get one of my enchantments back, I could get one of my 2 planeswalkers that are sitting here back. Basically, by kicking the spell, I get a creature and whatever I want, essentially, that is a permanent. It can even be a land. Casualties of War was already in there. It's a great card for sure. So was Shamanic Reclamation, Decree of Pain. I added in an Overrun because if I can get my army of squirrels up super large and give them +3/+3 and trample on 1 turn, they're just going to annihilate. Rootcast Apprenticeship. I can choose 3, and if I want to choose the same one more than once, I really like this card. It was already in the deck, but it's an excellent card for my squirrels. Chatterstorm, I just switched out to the old school artwork. I like that one better. And Swarmyard Massacre was already in there too. Another great inclusion in this deck for sure. Instance, I didn't change too much. I put in Feed the Cycle, just because it's on point with this deck. You either forge or you pay an extra black to cast this spell, and you get to destroy target creature or planeswalker. Putrefy was already in there. Saw in Half was already in there. Saw in Half's probably one of the game-changing cards in this deck for sure. As long as you're not targeting a legendary, you're definitely getting something really solid out of this. And even if you target a legendary in like defense, that's a great play. Snakeskin Veil's another add-in by me. I just had an extra copy, and it's a great way to protect your commander. Your commander or a key piece on the board if you need to. Terra Sunder was already in that deck. It's one of my favorite spells. I went over it yesterday, how much I love that spell. Kicking it isn't that expensive, and you get to choose anything that is a non-land if you do, and exile it, which is great. Second Harvest, I love the artwork on this one. Went over that yesterday too. It's so cute. I'm really not sure why they didn't put squirrels in that one, but I'm not going to complain. That was more of a curious question. And I also put in Hazel's Nocturne just to give me 2 target creatures from my graveyard back to my hand, and then I get everybody to lose 2 life and I gain 2 life, which is pretty nice. For 4, I figure that's a pretty solid instant. I'll do the Planeswalkers next. We already saw Garruk yesterday. Garruk is pretty awesome. Other than that, it makes wolves instead of squirrels. But once again, if I make a couple of wolves, I can make a couple of squirrels with Chatterfang. So that's... I know I keep arguing myself into play Chatterfang, but it's just everybody plays Chatterfang. It really comes down to that. But I do like the idea that the wolves give me loyalty counters when they die. So those might be worth sacrificing. And there are a couple sack outlets in this deck still. Not a lot, but there's still a couple. They're mostly the creatures, though, at this point. And then Liliana of the Dark Realms. I mentioned I wanted to get a copy of this. Shout out to Dark Fox. They had 1 copy left. It's a great planeswalker. And the fact that it's a squirrel is just on point. If it was green-black and was allowed to be commander, I would run that as commander probably, to be perfectly honest. Alright, in terms of creatures, what did I add in? I added in an Eager Truffle Snout. It's a 4/2 with trample, and when it deals combat damage, I get to create a food. Whenever I create a food, I get to create a squirrel. Again, just trying to do what I could on synergy. This is an example of one of the sacrifice outlets. I believe Ravenous Squirrel was already in there, and I just switched out the artwork. I had a super cool promo one, and I'm pretty happy to have that in there. That was already in there. Was it? I must have switched it with the other one by accident. Or added an extra... Did I add an extra one in? That would be bad. If I had an extra one in, I have to get an extra land. Instead. Nope, I just must have switched it for the other one by accident. That was already in the deck, because I'm pretty sure there was one of those already in the deck. But, quick flip through, I do not see it. So, yeah, okay, we're good. So that was just an accidental switch, to be honest. I don't know why I did it, but I love the guy. He puts +1/+1 counters for squirrels and foods on himself. It's a great card. Squirrel Sovereign, I love the artwork on this one. The artwork on the other one that has already been printed before is pretty nice too, but I really like this one. I kept the Deep Forest Hermit in there just because it creates a whole bunch of squirrels. And again, when I create squirrels, if I have Chatterfang out, I get to create more squirrels. I also kept Beladros in there because he's creating pests. Again, creating squirrels. Like I said, I'm really arguing myself into playing Chatterfang, but it's just... Camellia is so cute. Zulaport Cutthroat I left in there too, just because it's a key combo piece. I added in Scurried Colony. It's a reach, and it gets 2/2 if you have 8 or more lands, so it becomes a 4/4 with reach. It's pretty nice. I added in Gothmog Morgul Lieutenant so that all my tokens will get Death Touch. The amassing one orc I don't really care that much about, other than, again, if Chatterfang is commander and he's out, then I get to make a squirrel on top of making an orc. But the idea that all my squirrels can have Death Touch is the main reason why I'm putting this in there. It's actually the reason why I've included it in a lot of different decks. I think I've put this into 3 or 4 different decks now. I love this card. I don't know why this card is not more expensive than it is, to be honest, for the amount of decks that it can go in. Gilded Goose is insane. Great card for this deck. Hazel's Brewmaster was already in here, so was Toski. I added in a Corpseberry Cultivator. I might have had one in there already, I can't remember for sure, but I had a hollow one, so I wanted to switch out, at least for artwork. If it wasn't in the deck originally, then it's a great one to have, because on the beginning of your turn, you can forage, or at the beginning of combat, sorry, you can forage. And if you forage, you put a +1/+1 counter on this. But of course, when you sacrifice a food, this one is great with Camellia for a change, because whenever you sacrifice the food, Camellia will trigger and give me a squirrel. The Prosperous Innkeeper, I ultimately decided to leave in just because I'm getting too many creatures into play, and so it's worth the amount of life I'm going to gain. I was originally going to take it out and include it in the eventual halfling deck I want to build, the hobbits deck I want to build, but I think I'll just buy a second copy if I need to at that point. Nadir's Nightblade is too good to not keep in because of the amount of tokens that are going to be dying constantly, and so it'll cost people. Academy Manufacturer is just great because, again, if I use Chatterfang, then, and that was already in this deck anyways, but I had an extra copy and I would have been putting it in if it wasn't already in the deck. I ended up taking Bloodroot Apothecary out of the bunny deck. The bunny deck, I'm thinking I might regret that decision, to be perfectly honest. But this card's hard to get a copy of right now, and it's too good not to put it in this deck. Just because, again, treasure, give me a squirrel if I choose to be Chatterfang. And on top of that, anybody who sacrifices a... Oh, it's a non-creature token, they get poison counters. I didn't realize it was only non-creature tokens. That sucks. That sucks a little bit. But it's still really useful in this deck. And again, it's a squirrel. I didn't want to leave it in the bunny deck by itself as the only squirrel. Nested Shambler I just switched out for artwork. Thornvolt Forager is one that I added in. It's great because I can add green, or I can tap it to forage, and then get mana of any combination of colors, which will obviously green and black. And I can pay 3 and a green to search my library for a squirrel and put it in my hand. So this is a great way to actually basically tutor for the squirrels that I want to put into play so that I have my combo on the field when I want it. Assuming that I don't use Chatterfang as my commander, or Camellia. Those are basically the things I'm going to be searching for primarily. Whichever one isn't commander. I left Arasta in because it's just too good not to. Whenever opponent casts instants or sorceries, I get spiders. Spiders give me squirrels. Tireless Provisioner, again, squirrels. Plus treasures and foods. I left this one in too. It's just a great way to try and win the game again. If I don't get overrun, I can get this on the field and do the same thing. I got my hands on the final copy of Squirrel Mob from Paradox, I believe it was, and pretty happy about that. So definitely needed to add that in. Ogre Slumlord is great because whenever my squirrels die, I get rats. And whenever I get rats, if I have Chatterfang, I get squirrels. The Odd Acorn Gang. I didn't take out either of the commanders that came with this deck. I just chose not to use them. They're great cards. They're just not as good as Chatterfang or Camellia, in my opinion. I added in a Glittermonger just so I can create treasures. Again, creating squirrels. A Valley Rotcaller is also an add-in by me. Whenever it attacks, each opponent loses X life, and I gain X life, where X is the number of other squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats I control. I don't have any bats any longer in this deck. I did take out the one really cool bat that was in this deck. I ultimately decided I don't really feel like making blood tokens first. with this deck that much. I know the draw power is key, but I'm going to be using a lot more of my mana for sacrificing foods, I figure, and I won't have excess mana for sacrificing blood tokens. So, plus my vampire deck is focused heavily on blood token creation to a certain extent, so I figured it's going to be a great piece in that. Hazel, of course, stayed in the deck. I love that artwork. Insanely cute artwork. I had a Treetop Sentry that was a hollow, so I switched out the artwork just for that reason. This is the other card I was talking about that I would put the Swiftfoot Boots on. I love this card because first off, it has Death Touch. Everybody knows I love Death Touch. But the main thing is I can tap this, and until end of turn, I can cast my squirrels from the graveyard. So essentially, it doesn't matter which one of these two I pick as my commander. If I can get this thing out on the field and I can protect it from dying, I can constantly bring back my commander from the graveyard, or I can bring back the other one that isn't my commander from the graveyard, and I can avoid commander attacks just by tapping this each turn, which is pretty cool. I would lose the ability to have the Death Touch at the end of turn, but it for the protection. But again, if I can give all my squirrels Death Touch, then I don't have to work, or all my tokens Death Touch. I don't have to necessarily worry about that. I left the Skyfisher Spider in there. It was one of the ones that I was really humming and hawing over pulling. Ultimately, I think the life gain is the reason I'm going to keep it. It does have reach, which is pretty good too, because reach is always an issue for green decks. Another one with reach, and again, I really like the second effect more than the first effects probably, but Death Touch is also great, of course. Scurry of Squirrels was already in this deck. And finally, I added in a Daggerfang Duo, which is a rat squirrel. For the cards that count rats and squirrels, I think that might get counted twice, which is pretty cool, first off. And then, of course, it has Death Touch. The milling, I don't think I will do very often. I might do it if I'm really struggling to get things going, but ultimately, it's probably not going to be the plan. But yeah, that is my either Chatterfang or Camellia deck. Like I say, Chatterfang is probably the better one, to be honest. Um, it's just so much that everybody plays Chatterfang. But I mean, it is the right commander for squirrels. It really, truly is. Camellia is super cute, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that she costs the same amount. It's just that you have to pay a black instead of just one green in terms of him. But, yeah. I don't know. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you think. For now, I'm leaving them both out, and like I say, I'm going to playtest both of them in pods. Not this weekend, likely, because it's already pretty late in the weekend, and I have to go to bed super early today, unfortunately, because Monday we do not get off at my job, and we're starting at 1, which is ugly as heck. Trying not to swear in this one, just to be nice for Easter. So shuffle that up, and then I'll put it back in the box, and we will get out the bunny deck. The bunny deck, I don't need anybody's help on that one. I am not going to ever pick Foxglove as the commander of that deck. If anything, at worst, I'm either going to buy a second Foxglove and make another deck around him, or I would pull him if I really wanted to do something with him as a commander. But he would never be the commander of this deck because it just wouldn't work out. Alright, this deck only has the one Planeswalker. And it is the one that it came with, so I won't leave you in suspense too long on that. Lands I'll put there because that's the first thing I'll do. And then we'll do the creatures there, and that, and that, and that, and that. That's off bed. Damn. Or off camera, I mean. Off bed, that would be weird. Alright, well, like I said, we'll do the Planeswalker first. It is a bunny, so it does count as one of the bunnies in this deck, even though it's not a creature. I'm counting it. And it is super ridiculously cute. And honestly, it could be this switch out for the commander if it was allowed to be a commander, but I probably still wouldn't do that. The bunny is just too damn good. Mrs. Bumbleflower is probably one of the best commanders that they've designed, in my opinion. And this could be a hot take, but it probably isn't. I think she's one of the best commanders they've designed in the last year and a half, 2 years. There's a few that are really bang on, don't get me wrong, but the way she works, and the deck they designed for her in the first place was just phenomenal. Alright, so let's do the lands real quick. I did get a Fable Passage and I put it in this deck. I really like the artwork on it, and you'll notice that I'm doing also the full arts of the plains, forests, and islands. My goal was to get one of each season. I think I got pretty close, if not all of them, but I might have one double up in here. I do love the command tower from this series. I think it was the same command tower in both decks. There's the forest. I think that's the only forest that might be the wrong one because it's like an apocalypse forest, it looks like. And I don't have any burned out cards for the other ones, except for maybe a in that style. So I'm not sure if those are worth extra or not, but it is a hollow one, which is pretty cool. I just not super huge fan of the Devastation, but it was, again, a full art one and I wanted to include it. I love the Exotic Orchard in this series. I took that actually out of the other deck. The likelihood that everybody's playing green and black is probably high enough that I could actually use it, but I just didn't see the need. Especially because if they're not playing what I need, then I can just only use it for colorless, essentially. Or whatever color they're using it, but you know what I mean. I got the Winter Island. I got the nice, I think that one's the Spring Island. Got the Winter Plains. That one's the Autumn Island. I have an Oak Hollow Village in this deck too. It just made solid sense to put that in because you can put +1/+1 counters on each creature that entered the battlefield this turn that has a frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel type. I should look in my box and see if I have an extra one of those for my scrolls, but I don't think I do. Adakar Wastes. I'm not a huge fan of lands that deal damage to you, but I left it in this one just because I needed the extra filtering, essentially. Like, I wanted to have as many double lands as possible, and then basically the only basics in here are basics that have full art, like these ones. Very beautiful lands. I love them. Especially the bunny ones. The forest ones are like my favorite ones because they have the bunny in them. Alright. Moving on. Start at this end. I got a full art Swiftfoot boots in a product from Foundations that you'll see later on. Eventually down the line. I have the videos recorded, I've just not posted them yet. I'm thinking about doing a Foundations week at some point. Anyways, so yeah, I love the Swiftfoot boots artwork for sure. And again, you need to protect the bunny. So this one originally came with a Swiftfoot boots. I actually took that Swiftfoot boots out and put it into the squirrel one, and then I gave the bunny the full art one because the bunny has a lot more pimped out artwork I found than the squirrel did, and I wanted to just keep up with that trend. Arcane Signet is beautiful. Jirapor Uri is in this deck still. It came with this deck. It's an amazing card for sure. Especially the fact that you get to draw 3 cards if you have no cards in hand. But you also get to play an additional land on each of your turns, so that's phenomenal too. Thought Vessel, of course. Soul Ring, and I added a Heaped Harvest into this deck. It's an amazing artifact because you get to search your library basic land each time it comes in and out. And the mana value being 3, I can actually get it back with a couple of different cards in this deck fairly cheaply, so I can replay it. And essentially it works as a food too. So all around, very versatile card. The enchantments, it came with a wizard's class, which was an insane card to come with too. It also came with communal brewing, great card for this deck because we definitely want to be adding +1/+1 counters as often as possible. Rites of Flourishing is another one it came with, phenomenal card to add into this deck. Primal Empathy is one I added in. At the beginning of upkeep, I get to draw a card if I control a creature with the greatest power. If not, I'm putting a +1/+1 counter on something. The goal is to be drawing the extra card, but if not, it is what it is. I also added in a Felidar Retreat. Since we're trying to play multiple lands per turn in this deck, I figure you get to make a cat each turn and get to put +1/+1 counter on every creature and give them vigilance. Why not try and do it twice? Tenacious Truce was one that it already came with. It's a phenomenal card for sure, especially if you know that the person you're going to be working with is actually going to agree to draw the cards and actually not attack you. Hoofprints of the Stag was one it came with too. I like the fact that you can just generate tokens essentially with this thing that have flying. I added a Hardened Scales to this deck, and check out the artwork on this one. It is beautiful. If the hollow stops messing around. So whenever you add a +1/+1 counter to a creature, you're going to put that many +1/+1/+1 counters on it instead, so just doubling things up. Fisher's Talent already came in this deck. Another phenomenal class card. The class cards in this series were insane. And finally, Simic Ascendancy also came in this deck, so just a phenomenal extra win con that you can throw in here for fun. Because, this deck needed a few extra win cons. Not really, but it does. Use them very efficiently. We're on to sorceries now. I added in a Starfall Invocation. You get to destroy all creatures, and if you gift a card, you get to return a creature card that you put into your graveyard to the battlefield. So essentially, you get to come back one up on everybody with this card if you do it the right way. Promise of Loyalty is another great board wipe card. Cultivate, that one already came in this deck though. Cultivate is also a great inclusion in this deck. Already came in it. Secret Rendezvous, why not give more people card draw? Tempt with Discovery is a phenomenal card that came in this deck. Same with Tempt with Bunnies. I love Tempt with Bunnies. It's probably my favorite sorcery in this deck. It is so much fun to see if people will actually take the bunny, and whether I get multiple bunnies or not. Longstalk Brawl, not bad, not bad. I added that one in. Basically, my goal is to put the +1/+1 counter likely on the bunny, and then have it fight whatever I'm going to have fight. Farseek already came in this deck. Beautiful artwork on the Farseek. Season of Weaving's one I added in as a closing out card kind of thing. I think it's a great one to use for sure. You can either end up drawing a whole bunch of cards, or you can copy things, or you can return each non-token permanent to its owner's hand. So a great way to do this is to copy the bunny, let the bunny die, and then put the boots on the copy of the bunny, and then return everybody's non-land stuff to their field and attack with the bunny. Finale of Revelation's another add-in I just got recently. An insane card for this deck, for sure. It's definitely got the mana to pull this off, based on the number of times I played it before. I've never actually played the deck since I've added this card in yet, but previous times that I've played this deck, knowing how much land I can get into the battlefield on a regular basis, this should be easy enough to pull off for the X's 10 or more. And then I just have the ability to reset my deck, plus draw a whole bunch of extra cards, untap some lands. Great stuff. And finally, Wear Down is another one I added in. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. If a gift was promised, I get to do 2 of that. I like to do a bunch of gifting in this deck, and there's a reason for that. There's a creature I've added in here just for the shits and giggles of I get to draw a card whenever I do a gift. So I figure there's no point in not. Perch Protection is an insane card that actually came in this deck already. You get to create 4 blue bird tokens, and if a gift is promised, all permanents you control phase out into your next turn. You can't have your life change, and you can't, and you get protection from everything. So basically, if you give somebody an extra turn, you can actually survive a whole bunch of crap. Long River Pole is a great counter card. Another one with a gift. Swords to Plowshares. I pulled an insanely beautiful artwork on that and had to add it into this deck. Shore Up. I believe it came with one of these, but if not, I added it in. If it did come with one, I just switched it out for the artwork. It has hollow, so, shiny. Same with Peerless Recycling. I think this one already came with one, but if not, I added it in merely for the hollow. Or if it did have one, I merely added it in because it's hollow. Generous Gift is a crazy card to add into this deck. Same with An Offer You Can't Refuse. Riot Control. That's also great. And Blessed Respite is one I added in. Just another way to prevent all combat damage. If there's any situation where I don't have proper control of the board, somehow, some way, in a deck where I'm giving everybody cards, if they somehow, take advantage of that. Oh, the Shore Up fell off my lap and fell out of its pile and onto my lap. Alright, onto the creatures, and then we'll close out this Easter video, let you guys go on to your holiday. Anybody who actually tunes in today, first off, happy Easter to you, seriously, or whatever holiday you celebrate, and second off, major, major love to you for actually tuning in on a Sunday. That is a holiday. A few people tuned in on Friday, and I was actually shocked by the amount of people who watched my Good Friday Dollarama Draws at Destiny video. If you didn't check that out yet, please go back and give that a look. We finally broke the drought and pulled a legendary. I don't want to tell you which one, because I don't want to spoil it. But we did pull one, which is pretty cool. And it's actually really a great one for one of the decks I'm building right now. Anyways, Paw Patch Recruit, Offspring 2, Trample, and I can give any creature essentially a +1/+1 counter that isn't the target of the spell that is being played. So if an opponent targets, say, my bunny with a spell, I can put a +1/+1 counter on this bunny. So basically that's one of the reasons why this is one of the, again, I think there's like 4 bunnies in this entire deck, and he's one of the ones I put in because he was awesome. 20-Toed Toad came with this deck, but I pulled a full art one, so definitely switched it out for the artwork. I haven't decided what I'm doing with the other 20-Toed Toad yet. I don't believe I put it into any other decks yet. I'm thinking about putting it in my blue deck just as an alternate win con, but I'm not sure what I want to pull for it if I do. Trigon Predator is a old school card that came back in Foundations, which is pretty cool. Whenever it deals combat damage to, at least I think it's old school. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but it kind of has an old school feel to it. 2/3 with flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player, it can destroy an artifact or an enchantment that player controls. I think that's just insane. Furbarrow Elder is an awesome card for this deck. You get 3 mana, essentially. I'm not going to be attacking with it very often. I'm going to be tapping it for the mana, for sure. Chasm Skulker, another insane card that they actually put in this deck. Whenever you draw a card, it's getting a +1/+1 counter. And when it dies, you get to create an insane number of squid, equal to the amount of +1/+1 counters that were on it. Plus, all those squid have Island Walk. So hopefully the player you're playing against that removes it is blue, and you can punish them on your next turn with that hugely. Spore Frog came with this deck. Another great way to prevent all combat damage. I added a Sky Mage from Foundations 2. Whenever you draw a card, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it has flying, so it's just another great way to evade a lot of blockers and hit people for massive amounts of damage. Ironically, for a group hug deck, I'm playing this more as a combat deck that just happens to give everybody gifts because I like combat. It's just the style I play. Even my defender deck that I recently bought, the dragon one that I showed you guys a couple weeks ago, totally based around trying to win with combat. Each player, I love Savala. Who doesn't love Savala? She's just a great card. Joriel was also included in this deck for whatever reason. This deck was like maximally pimped out in the first place. The switches that I made just kind of made it run a little more smoothly and gave it a few extra little shiny bits essentially to play with. It's not like it was necessary. I could have played this as a precon for the rest of my life and been just as happy. Whenever you draw your second spell each or your second card each turn, you get to create a cat. And whenever you can pay 6 and give all your creatures XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So in a deck where you basically have no maximum hand size a lot of the time, or your maximum hand size is 13 or 20, it's going to be pretty ridiculous when you swing with those creatures. 3-tree Root Weaver is an insanely awesome mana fixer that they came out with in Bloomburrow. I only have like 1 or 2 copies of him, unfortunately. I think I'm putting the other one in that spirit deck that I'm currently building. Rishkar Prima Renegade was also included in this deck. Just an insane card. All your creatures will tap for mana because they're all going to end up with +1/+1 counters at some point, given what the bunny does and what the rest of the deck likes to do. Lorena the Third Path, another include in this deck. You get to draw a card, your opponent gets to draw a card, you just want to keep drawing cards, why not? And when it enters, you get to destroy an artifact or enchantment, sure. So this is Mr. Foxglove, in case you haven't seen him before. The 3/5 is a pretty solid stat line in the first place, but then he has lifelink, which is awesome. Every time he attacks, you get to draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. So if somebody else has more cards than you, basically you're going to get a bunch of cards every time he attacks. The problem is, chances are nobody's going to have more cards in their hand than you do by the time, let's say, turn 7 or 8 rolls around. If you're doing all the gifting that you're doing and the bunny's doing its thing, assuming the bunny's on the field. So that's why I have no interest in making it the commander. It is an amazingly cute artwork. My former partner, who occasionally sometimes still watches these videos, and I appreciate that. She would have loved this fox guy, so I'm just going to zoom in on him for her if she happens to tune in, and for all you guys who happen to love foxes. Quain is another rabbit. It was already included in the deck. I would have put it in for sure if I had a copy, though. Insanely cute rabbit. It's designed in theory to be an extra commander if you could have got green on it, but it doesn't have green, so unfortunately no. Triskaideka, I always get this really bad, so give me a chance. Triskaidekaphile. I think that's how you say it. You have no maximum hand size. If you can get 13 cards into your hand by the start of your upkeep, you automatically win with this card, which is crazy. Another win con, just like the Toad from before. The 20-toed Toad is an automatic win con too. So many automatic win cons in this deck. And then you just get to swing constantly too. I love this deck. It's easily my top 10 favorite decks, if not top 5. Colonian Hydra, insane card for sure. Gets to come in with +1/+1 counters, and whenever it attacks, you double the number of +1/+1 counters on all your creatures. Ren's Hydra comes in with +1/+1 counters based on how much mana you pay, or you can pay X and 2 green instead of X and 1 green, and then you can discard this thing to put that many +1/+1 counters on a creature, which is pretty cool. So that's a great way to just get the Toad to 20 real fast if you want to, and you have enough mana to do it. Body of Knowledge is another one that's insane. Gives you no maximum hand size. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. So this thing's just going to get massive. If you give it flying each turn with the bunny, you're swinging for insane damage. Baird, Steward of Argive, another one that was already in the deck. Just a crazy card for sure. Creatures can't attack you unless they pay 1. So basically, it's like a ghostly prison on a creature, essentially, almost. Except I think ghostly prisons pay 2, but I can't remember for sure. Mangara was also in this deck. Like, I just can't believe all the cards they put in this deck. It was insane. Lifelink, whenever an opponent attacks, if 2 or more of those creatures attack you, you get to draw a card, and whenever an opponent plays a second spell each turn, you get to draw a card. Whenever you draw cards, you're doing the bunny thing. No, you're only doing the bunny thing when your opponents draw cards. But still, you're drawing lots of cards, so you're always in charge of the game, essentially, if you can keep on point. Dream Dew Enchancer. I can't remember if this card came in this deck or not, but I pulled this as my promo in the Bloomburrow pre-release when that came out, and it was one of my favorite cards from that set, so I definitely included it in this deck. Whenever it enters, you can tap 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. And if you control the creature, you get to draw 2 cards, which isn't something I typically do. I usually stun something that's a problem on the board, but it also has reach, which is great. Steelbearer Champion is another one that has Offspring. I think there's only 2 cards in this deck that have Offspring. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on this thing. So if you do the Offspring, you're going to have 2 of those big-ass mice. This is the one that lets you draw a card every time you gift something. Unfortunately, doing the bunny trigger is not a gift. That is the only downside to the bunny in terms of the Jolly Gerbils, but there's still plenty of ways to trigger this, and he's just cute. He's just way too cute not to include in a deck full of animals. Psychosis Crawler is another one that got included in this deck for whatever reason. Power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses a life. Forgotten Ancient, another one that was already included in the deck. You're getting to put +1/+1 counters on this whenever somebody casts a spell, including yourself. And at the beginning of upkeep, you can move any number of +1/+1 counters from it to somewhere else. The fact that it's a 0/3 is insane as well. I have a really cute card that I'm actually adding into a deck I'm building right now called Cat. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a cat monkey. And it comes in with +1/+1 counters and does the same thing, but it's a 0/0, so you have to be really careful not to, like, kill it. Sunscorch Regent, which is why this one's better. Sunscorch Regent, flying, whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on this thing, and you gain a life, so just constantly keeping your life total up. This is one of those cards that people have suggested pulling from this deck, but I've done really well with this card. Sometimes I can't control the board with the bunny, but just having this on the field is enough to keep people from being able to play well. And finally, Mana Gorger Hydra, just another Hydra, why not? Another one that was already included. That wraps up all the monsters, sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! Old school. All the creatures in this deck. There is one creature that I am hunting for. I'm still hunting for it. Been hunting for it forever and a day, and I'm not 100% sure what I would take out, to be honest. If I were to take something out, I'd probably take out the Sky Mage when I get this card. But what this card is Nord's Choir Master. I wish I was better at editing. I would put up an image of the Choir Master here, but I'm not good at that. So basically, Nord's Choir Master is a card from Phyrexia All Will Be One. It is an angel, Phyrexian angel that has flying. But the big thing that it does is whenever it attacks, whenever your commander attacks, you proliferate. So I'm constantly attacking with this bunny because this bunny has vigilance, and if you give this bunny a +1/+1 counter each turn, it also gets flying. So I constantly swing with my bunny. Pretty much every turn I swing with the bunny once I can start swinging with it. And having the angel next to the bunny means every time I swing with the bunny, all the creatures that already have a +1/+1 counter will get another +1/+1 counter. So I've been trying to pull this card for a really long time. It's actually a big part of why I'm doing Jumpstart Phyrexia All Will Be One right now. I realized I'd have better chances pulling it from set boosters, but right now I'm not doing that as a set. I'm thinking about eventually doing that one as one of the old sets in new set versus old set. But for now, it is what it is. The bunny deck is still pretty damn amazing the way it is. I can't be unhappy with that. And honestly, I think I've won. It's one of the few decks that I've actually won more games with than lost games with, in terms of how many times I played it. I think I've played the bunny deck maybe 10 times, and I'd say I've probably won at least 6 games with this bunny deck. I don't tend to win very often with a lot of decks that I build, just because... And technically, I didn't build most of this deck. It came pre-assembled. I just added to it. But decks that I do build, I tend to do maybe 1 in 6 games I might win, 1 in 7. Like, I don't win very often. Which, I'm not playing necessarily to win. I'm playing to do whatever the deck does. For me, that's my win con. Beating my other opponents is always fun, don't get me wrong, but when I play Commander, what I really want to do is make my deck do what it's supposed to do. If my deck is doing what it's supposed to do at any point in the game, and I'm having fun doing what I'm supposed to do with that deck, that was a win for me. So that's my goal when I play Commander, which is why I tend to play pods in bracket 2 and 3 rather than going up into the competitive stuff. But anyways, we're going to cap it off there. That was my Easter double Precon Super Deck Sunday video for you guys. Thank you for tuning in again. Happy holidays to you, whatever you're celebrating. Happy Easter. Happy whatever holidays there are. To be honest, I didn't do enough research on this kind of topic before I started the video. I apologize. But I do hope you celebrate something and you have a wonderful weekend. Much love to you all. From me to you. Take care. And bye.